Good afternoon and welcome to the Increasing Land Capital and Market Access Program webinar. Today, we are going to go over some additional questions and give you some updates, and we look forward to you spending the time with us this afternoon. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it on over to Kanisha Hackett.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. I actually have the pleasure of joining you all from DC, where we have our state executive directors training. So it's been quite the pleasure hearing from them and those of them who have heard from you over the last few days, weeks, and months. I'll also add that it was quite a pleasure hearing from some of you in Atlanta on last week. And I just want to share some very exciting news that you all may have seen via email, on our website, or in other places. But essentially, we have extended the deadline for applications for the Increasing Land Capital and Market Access Program. The deadline is no longer October 28th, but has been extended to November 18th. 11:59 p.m. And so we look forward to all of you working very hard and diligently with your partners and those in your areas to submit these awesome applications that we look forward to reviewing. So again, I just want to say on behalf of our team across FSA and across USDA, thank you so much for your patience and your feedback throughout this process. The new deadline is now November 18th, 2022 at 11:59 p.m. and proposals will be accepted until that time. Thanks so much, Linda. I'm handing it back to you.
Thank you, Kanisha. You spoke, we listened, and we look forward to your robust applications before November 18th.
Okay. Hey, Linda.
Yeah.
I just want to add that the you that time was stakeholders. So stakeholders, Linda is saying that you all spoke and we listened. Not that Kanisha spoke and we listened. The stakeholders spoke and we listened. So I just wanted to add that.
Clarify that. Thank you, Kanisha. That is what I meant. So thank you. Thank you for your ongoing feedback as we go through the process. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Once again, in case there's some new folks on, we're going to go do kind of an overview of the program. We're going to go over some frequently asked questions. And today we're joined by Crystal Blackburn from our Grants and Agreements Division, who can answer some questions. There's also some additional cooperative agreement application and training resources that we're going to share with you. We want to remind everyone of the website, which you'll see at the end of this presentation, and included on that presentation, if you did not catch our meeting last week, you can see the recording for that. And also there's some sections corner from our first session that we had. So hopefully between the website, the NOFO, these webinars, we'll have the information together that you need. So I want to stress this again. Kanisha and I have been talking about this a lot recently, and Kara. We're really looking for creativity and innovation in these proposals. Each community, as we know, is unique and will have unique needs. And so we don't want to box you in on your creativity. We want to provide a framework, but still give you the freedom to bring your thoughts to the table. So the NOFO is your framework and your imagination is the chance to make a difference. So next slide. Just a little bit, the Increasing Land Capital and Market Access Program was authorized by the American Rescue Plan Act, Section 1006, and then amended later by Section 22007 of the Inflation Reduction Act. We will fund cooperative agreements or grants for projects that help underserved producers by increasing their land access, capital access, and/or market access. Underserved producers have not received the amount of specialized technical support that would benefit the launch, growth, resilience, and success of their agricultural enterprises. This program is intended to address this issue by increasing access to farm ownership opportunities for farmers, ranchers, and foresters, forest landowners, increasing access and improving results for those with heirs property or fractionated land, increasing access to markets and capital that affect the ability to access land, increasing land ownership, land succession, and agricultural business planning. The focus is on strengthening land access with at least one of the following related concerns: capital access, market access, or a combination of land capital and market access. I want to really note something though. Applications should ultimately benefit underserved producers, including farmers, ranchers, and forest landowners and operators. Priority points will be awarded for projects that focus on increasing land access, mitigating and preventing land loss, providing specialized project design and focus to address the challenges with land access, innovative ways to connect, here's that word again, to connect available land to producers who have challenges in accessing land, or restore lands into the hands of those who have been underserved. There's some funding tiers. The first is the large national land access tier, proposals from 20 to 40 million. And these are large scale national projects and within the national landscape. We'll be funding up to 2 projects in this tier. There's also mid-sized national land access tier, which is proposals from 10 to 15 million. Regional, which are from 5 to 8.5 million. Regional scale projects models designed for targeted groups across a region. These projects all these projects are up to 5 years. And then we have local, state, territorial land access tier, and those are 250,000 to 2.5 million. Again, all of these up to 5 years. Who's eligible? Here's the list. In case you can't see the slides, I'll just go through them very quickly. Various government entities from local to tribal, nonprofit organizations, not-for-profit educational institutions, community development financial institutions, foundations, and tribal financial institutions. It should be noted that individuals, non-domestic entities, and private for-profit organizations are not eligible to apply for this funding opportunity. Okay, now we're going to get into some questions. These questions have all come just from the emails that we've been receiving and things like that. So these are your questions, and we thought they were really good questions. So we pulled them all out so that we can make sure everybody's on the same page on these. So, can I have phone consultations? We cannot do individual consultations. Individual meetings undermine the competitive integrity, meaning that it could give someone an unfair advantage having a conversation over another. So we want to make sure that there's equitable access to these grant opportunities. The next question, and before I do that, I'd like to introduce Crystal Blackburn. She works in the Grants and Agreements Division, and she has been incredible and amazing and so helpful through this process. So we're really lucky to have her join us today. So Crystal, I'm going to have a few questions for you.
Okay, that's great. Hello, everyone. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Crystal. So the first question is there a dollar limit to how much of the award can go to capital expenditures, or a percentage of total project amount or total award amount?
So the regulations that govern financial assistance awards state that capital expenditures can only be charged to a grant as a direct cost with the prior approval of the agency. So each application will be evaluated if it includes expenditures for capital or capital expenditures. The agency has not set a cap or a threshold. So if you are going to request to have capital expenditures as a part of your award, just be sure to include a very thorough justification and explain why it's necessary in order for your project to meet the objectives of the program.
Thank you, Crystal. The next question we got is based on the award amount stated on a per year basis, or is it for the full project period? The award amount will be for the full project period. Another one for you, Crystal. Can you please explain the difference between a grant and a cooperative agreement? And then
Sure.
tell us in that how it's decided, grant versus cooperative agreement.
Okay, so a grant and a cooperative agreement are exactly the same in every regard except one, and that is the level of involvement that the federal agency has in the project. So a grant has very little involvement from the government. It would be limited to reviewing your progress reports, reviewing your financial reports, making disbursements, et cetera. A cooperative agreement has a much higher level of involvement, and it's more like a partnership between the agency and the awardee. How is it decided? You should indicate on your proposal whether you are proposing it as a grant or as a cooperative agreement. Depending on the nature of the proposal, we may negotiate that with you. It may look like if you propose a grant, but there clearly will be some significant government involvement. You know, that's not a huge issue that would hang up your application, and we can sort that out once we review them. Excuse me.
Thanks, Chris.
Excuse me, can I add one thing to that too?
Yes.
I just want to flag the portion of the NOFO that talks about the expectation that any selected applicants will be expected and often required to work with some of our other USDA cooperators. And so I just wanted to flag that. So even if there's a grant and there is less involvement and oversight, the expectation that those selected to be a part of this program, or there is an expectation that those selected to be a part of this program will work with other USDA cooperators. So I just wanted to flag that really quickly.
Thank you, Nisha. Okay, on to the next question. Are these funds reimbursement based? And can you discuss the payout process, please?
Sure. So the agency has elected to structure these grants on a reimbursement basis for the most part, but there is room for a case-by-case discussion of advance payments. It's understandable that there may be some expenditures during the course of the award period that would necessitate an advance payment, and we'll consider those on a case-by-case basis. I do want to provide some additional information about reimbursement payments. You can request payment on either a cash or accrual basis, and I'm sorry if this is getting into some technical jargon, but it's important for you to understand, so bear with me. If you request reimbursement on a cash basis, that means that you have actually made an outlay of cash and you're asking to be reimbursed. If you request it on an accrual basis, you can ask for reimbursement before you actually make the outlay. You merely have to have incurred the obligation to pay. So for instance, if your personnel works for a week, you have incurred an obligation to pay them even if you have not given them their check. So that gives you a little more flexibility in terms of timing of your expenditures versus your the funds that you receive from the government. And I'll add one more thing to that. Each payment request can be either cash or accrual. You can switch back and forth for various payment requests, and it is not linked to your organization's underlying accounting structure. So hopefully that's clear, and we'll put it in writing so that you can refer back to it and maybe talk to your accountant about it.
Thank you so much. Another question we have is that the NOFO states that FSA will be substantively involved in the work performed under the agreement. Do we need to have partner letters from our local FSA detailing what work will be performed? No, we do not need to have that. Once the agreement's in place, though, we will be working closely with at the local level or in the service area level if selected for these agreements. And so at that time, that partnership will be enhanced, forged, created, whatever placement we happen to be in at that time. All right, next question. What is the threshold for substantial involvement of the government that determines whether funds are awarded by cooperative agreements or grants to awardees?
So this one, I have two things to say about this. There's not a bright line test to say, this particular project, these items or these activities would automatically push an award into the category of either a cooperative agreement or grant. When we look at the proposals, it will probably be fairly clear. You should identify in your proposal whether you're requesting a grant or a cooperative agreement. But it's there's a lot of discretion in determining, how we're going to categorize that. I will say on a previous slide, it said that FSA will be substantially involved. I just want to clarify if it's a grant agreement, that wouldn't be the case. And this is actually to Linda and Kenesha. If we expect that FSA will be substantially involved in all of the awards, then okay. So that's FSA will be substantially involved if it's a cooperative agreement. Okay, gotcha. So that's all I have to say on this one.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna peek through the Q&As thing.
So I inserted this slide on the sly, Linda, so I'll address it.
Okay, go ahead, Crystal.
I wanted to just bring a few points up to potential applicants. If you do not have a SAM registration already in place, please start that process immediately. SAM has been experiencing some delays. They recently switched from a DUNS-based process to now a unique entity identifier. And in the process of that transition, they've experienced some technical hiccups. So please do not delay in getting that process started. I'll say one more thing about that. Part of the unique entity identifier process, UEI, is that your organization has to go through an IRS validation. And that's basically the IRS will, confirm that, yes, this is an organization that exists at this address and it's not a repeat of another organization in the system. That's where the hiccup has been happening most of the time. So when your validation is done, you will get an email that says you now have a UEI. That's not the end of the process. We've had a couple of applicants get hung up because they thought they were done, but you actually have to take additional steps to complete the registration. And I would hate for someone with a fantastic proposal to not be eligible because your SAM registration didn't get finished. Similarly, with grants.gov, if you have never applied before, make sure you get your account established soon. Don't wait until the last day to do that, because sometimes sometimes you may encounter some technical problems that you'll need to work through, and that's not fun on the last day when everything is has to be submitted. In the NFO, there are two attachments that if you just open the main body of the NFO, you might not notice. I spoke to Linda earlier to see if those attachments could be put on the website. She said that she believes that would be possible. But there are detailed instructions for completing some of the required forms, specifically the SF424, which is the application itself, and then the 424A, which is a budget document. And then there's also some really detailed instructions on preparing your budget narrative. And if you follow along with that guidance, you'll have a much greater chance of success in terms of having an application that checks all the boxes. And then again, I'll just say, don't wait till the last minute, because it is not uncommon for folks to have some kind of technical problem when they're trying to upload their application to grants.gov. And so you don't want to be at 11:45 p.m. trying to sort that out. So that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Crystal. We do have some questions in the queue here. I'm not sure that all these can be answered at this time, but I will grab a few of them. And if we don't have the answer, we will update our frequently asked questions and have that up on there. One of them, is there a specific, this one's for you, Crystal. A couple of these are for you.
Okay.
What is the NFO, the place to find instructions? That's
Okay, so the NFO is the Notice of Funding Opportunity. You can find it on grants.gov. You can do a keyword search, access land, and it should come up, or you can go to the program website and there's a direct link to it. Once you're in grants.gov, you open the announcement and there's a tab that you should hit that says related documents. The face page that you land on is just the summary. So if you click on the related documents tab, you will see the actual PDF of the NOFO. And then you'll also see the attachments that I mentioned. But frequently what happens is people open the announcement and forget to go back and look at the attachments. Yeah, there you go, related documents. So the first link is you don't want to click that first one. I forget, it's compressed, so it's everything compressed. I mean, you can uncompress it, but then the following links are PDF documents. So the second one there is the actual NFO, and the fourth and fifth are the instructional documents that I mentioned.
all right. And there's another one around how do you want, is there a specific budget template that should be used? And then on that site, I'm bringing that question in because that site Dana just had up actually has some best practices. So Crystal, I'll let you take that.
So if you can click on that budget narrative guidance, it has examples of how to present information. So there's just general instructions, but then if you scroll down, you'll see there are instructions about particular items of cost. So personnel, we either want to see a salary, a percent effort, project duration, and then the amount needed, or you can do it hourly. I thought we had an example for hourly also. The same idea, rate per hour, number of hours, total amount. Then fringe benefits, generally your your accounting department will tell you what the percent of your salaries they use to compute fringe benefits. That's all we need to know. Sometimes folks will include, what is in the fringe benefits, like so FICA, health insurance, et cetera. You can do that, but we don't need it. We just need to know, in accordance with your financial management practices, what is the percentage of salary that you use to calculate fringe benefits. Travel, you should estimate it based on the number of trips, the number of people who'll be traveling. You should give some explanation of what the purpose is. And then you should state whether or not your organization has its own travel policy that you will be following, or whether you will rely on the GSA rates. And then you should break it out as demonstrated: airfare, parking, hotels, meals, sometimes that's called per diem, rental car, etc. Okay, equipment, anything that you buy that has a life expectancy of more than 1 year and costs more than $5,000 is considered equipment. You just need to explain what the purpose of it is, how much it costs. That's about it. I will point out that sometimes equipment can count as a capital expenditure. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Generally, well, for the government, the threshold for capital expenditures is $25,000. So your organization may have a different capitalization threshold. You should check with your accountants to see what it is. If you don't have one, or if you are unable to come up with that, you can rely on the federal threshold, which is $25,000. And that does require prior approval. Now, anything that it requires prior approval, if you put it in your budget and we approve your budget, then you have your prior approval. But if during the course of an award, you were to discover that you need an additional piece of equipment, you would need to request prior approval from the agency before you made that kind of change in your budget. Supplies is pretty easy. And I'll say one thing in general about the budgets. All of this is estimates, right? You don't know precisely how much you're going to spend on supplies. So do your best to explain how you came up with the estimate. Tell us what kind of supplies you're going to expect to purchase and how much you think that's going to be. And your payments will be based on how much you actually spend. That's sometimes I think folks misunderstand, and they think that if you've got $20,000 for supplies in your budget, then you're just going to get $20,000. And that's not accurate. You have to actually just bill for what you actually expend up to what's approved in your budget. Contractual. Actually, I'm really glad we're having this, that you give me the opportunity to do this, because I think it's really helpful. Okay, so an important distinction between contractual and subawards. Subawards are to organizations or entities that are going to meaningfully participate in delivery of the program. So if you have a partner who's going to take on significant tasks that are required for execution of your project, they likely should be a subawardee rather than a contractor. A contractor is a company that provides services to the general public at large for prices that are published, or they may respond to a sealed bidding kind of situation, but they generally are not integrally incorporated into the project delivery itself. So for instance, if you wanted to print some instructional material, the printer would be a contractor. The writer who wrote it likely would be a subawardee, especially if they were lending some technical expertise to the development of the material. Contracts generally must be competed. The micro purchase threshold is $10,000, so anything under $10,000 does not require competition. Anything up to $250,000, you just have to get some quotes, preferably 3. But anything above that has to be formally advertised as a request for bids or request for proposals. You can find out more information about that if you want to look at the actual regulation. I know that sounds daunting, but it's actually pretty accessible. It's 2 CFR 200, I believe it's 317 through 327. I mean, it gives you some really detailed instructions on the requirements for competition. One caveat: if you are a state or a local government, you can just rely on your own procurement rules. You don't have to worry about those regulations at all. All right, moving right along. I don't know that we have an entry on here for subawards. Subawards would go under the other category, and they should basically be detailed at the same level as the prime awardee budget. So with personnel, travel, supplies, etc. Construction, I don't know if that would also, well, actually, if you're going to have construction in your proposal, you may want to send an email and request an additional form. There's an additional budget form. We were not contemplating that there would be construction as part of this program, but I suppose it's possible. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because I think it's probably not applicable. So some things that go into the other category are subawards, participant support costs. Those are if you are having a field day, for instance, and you want to provide transportation for producers to be able to attend that field day, or provide a stipend for travel, that's called a participant support cost, and it would go into the other category. Those are the 2 big items that we see frequently, and those 2 are important for calculating indirect costs. Okay, so that's what's next. This is the most complicated part. If your organization has a negotiated indirect cost rate agreement, you may use that rate, that indirect cost rate, and apply that to the direct cost portion of your budget. The shorthand term for negotiated indirect cost rate agreement is NICRA. If your NICRA will also specify the base, so it'll give you a percentage, like 15%, and then it'll say 15% of what, and it's usually something like salaries and fringe benefits, or modified total direct cost, which is all the costs except for equipment, participant support costs, and subawards. You can only charge indirects on the first 25,000 of any subawards if your base is modified total direct costs. If you don't have an agreement, an ICRA, then you can use what they call the de minimis rate, and that is just 10% of modified total direct costs, which I just described. And that's all, everything I just said pretty much is right here. But if we get more questions about that, I would be happy to write out a more detailed answer. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Crystal.
You'll notice in the, I'll say one more thing. You'll notice in the NFO and in this budget guidance that it refers to a cap. Don't worry about that. It doesn't apply to this program.
Thank you, Crystal. Kenesha, I have a question for you. Oh, here, hold on a second. I lost it. Will this grant program be available next year, or is this a one-time program?
Thank you, Linda. For this particular funding is funding that we received via Section 1006 as amended by 22007. So this particular program at this time is a one-time program. Now, should there be additional opportunities in the future, we would look forward to administering those. But at this time, this is the only funding available for this particular program.
Kenesha, while you're on, I'm going to send you one more question, if that's all right.
Yes, that's fine. Can you hear me, Linda?
I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you. What does work with other USDA cooperators mean? Attend calls to share best practices or something more?
Yes, so I'm going to give a general overview of what is meant by work with or cooperate with our other cooperators. So what we've been trying to do at USDA is have a more holistic approach. Just one second, please.
I'll just add on that holistic approach. It's about really looking through the lens of the community of work that we're doing. We all bring different gifts and talents to the table around working with our constituents. We may work with targeted organizations and in other groups, etc. But when we come together and we share best practices and we share ideas and we work together, whether it's cooperators with our local service center and others, it's important. That's important. And Kenesha's back, so I'll turn it back over to her.
My apologies. I am crashing someone else's space, and so I couldn't hear and think at the same time. All right. But I hope you all can hear me. So what we mean by work with other cooperators, we have USDA cooperators, we have NRCS cooperators, we have cooperators across the board. Excuse me, sir, could you step out, please? Thank you. We have other cooperators across the board and across USDA that are working on the ground in the communities, several of the communities in which you will also be working. And what we have decided, or what we're working to do, is to centralize that work, right? Making sure or ensuring that the work isn't duplicative. And so we do ask that cooperators come together and share those best practices, but there are oftentimes opportunities for cooperators to participate and work with each other a little more closely. And so should those opportunities arise, we will definitely share them with you all if you are selected, opportunities to be in the same space, right? And share toolkits or materials that are helpful and beneficial to the communities in which you serve. And so what is essentially meant by work with or cooperate with the other cooperators is to share those best practices primarily, but in the event that there are other opportunities that we are able to offer, we do ask that you participate in those to the extent possible and allowable. Thank you. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you, Tanisha. There's one more big question that that I'd kind of like to end the call with, but before we do that, Crystal, I didn't know, we kind of went over the budget. Did you have anything you would want to add on the statement of work or any of that that you would like to discuss or share or provide some advice or guidance on?
Sure. I have a little bit less definitive guidance when it comes to the actual project narrative portion of your application, because it's so variable depending on what the project is about. But typically you would include a description of the qualifications of the primary individuals who are going to execute the program. Give some sense of your organization's capacity to fulfill the parameters that you set out. So, you know, if you have a very ambitious project, you want to make sure that you show that you have the staff or the resources available to execute it. In terms of describing the project itself, I would recommend that you refer to the NFO and follow it closely. If there are particular items, like you look at the evaluation criteria, you may even want to pull out those particular items as a heading in your project narrative so that you know you've hit each item. And I think that's about all I can say, because like I said, the project narrative portion is so variable depending, and especially with this program, which is so innovative and it is encouraging such creativity, you know, it would be difficult to predict what other advice I could give.
Thank you, Crystal. All right, I have one last question that I'd like to ask Kenesha Hackett. We started the call with this, so I think it would be appropriate to end the call with this. Kenesha, will there be a deadline extension to this program?
Thank you, Linda. And I can definitively, as of today, actually yesterday, I think, say, yes, there is a deadline extension. The new deadline to submit proposals for this funding opportunity is November 18th, 2022 at 11:59 p.m. Again, that deadline has been extended. Linda, I want to take the words that you shared at the beginning and just add that you, the stakeholders, spoke and we listened. Thank you all so much for your feedback as we continue to answer your questions submitted via our email address, land.access@usda.gov. We appreciate your feedback. We appreciate your understanding and flexibility as we work throughout this program. I also want to say thank you so much to our team, to Linda Cronin, who leads our outreach office, to Crystal Blackburn, who leads our grants and agreements division, and then also to Kara, to Dana, to Janet, and the other members of our team across the agency and within the Business Center who have been instrumental in helping us work through this program. They advocated for you all. They helped me to understand the opportunity that we would have by extending this deadline. And so I just want to say thank you all. We look forward to receiving your proposals, and you have a team of USDA staff across the agency and the department that's rooting for you. So please, please, please take the time that you all need to submit the best proposal possible. We look forward to reviewing them and to working with those selected. Thank you for having me today, Linda. I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you, Kenesha. And thank you for your tireless efforts on this amazing program. I just want to finish with a couple of things. One, I want to share some resources with you. We talked about the webpage, which has a whole bunch of information, including other recorders, etc. And then also we have the grants.gov website that has some applicant training and resources that we invite you to check out. If you need any grants.gov support as you're putting things in, Remember, support@grants.gov. And you can find free grant training resources also at cfo.gov/grants-training/. So take advantage of those resources. Also, we probably did not get to every single question that's come out or to all of your questions. The NOFO probably has a lot of the answers that you're looking for within that. So we encourage you to try to take a look at that. And finally, here's a time for us to have creativity and innovation within the guidelines of the NOFO, of course, to really do some amazing work in our communities to help increase access. So thank you for your work every day that you do on the ground. And we look forward to the opportunity to hopefully continue to be working with you in one capacity or another.
Linda, can I say one more thing? It's
Sure, Crystal.
I just wanted to mention on that last slide, it mentions the support that you can get at grants.gov. Unfortunately, we at the agency, we don't have the necessary access into their systems to give you direct technical support with that technology with grants.gov, and the same goes for SAM. So I'm sorry to report that, but that's true across the board for all agencies. So if you do have technical issues with those two systems, you'll have to reach out to them directly.
Thank you, Crystal, for pointing that out. That might save people some calls or waited time before they go get referred back there anyway. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody. I hope you have an amazing afternoon. Again, if you have any further questions, we have a website, not a website, well, we have a website too, but we have an email set up at land.access@usda.gov. And we ask that you send your messages directly there. Kara's monitoring and tracking those, and we're working to get clarification on things that we may not have answers to and things like that. So we appreciate your patience and time. We're also using that for webinars like this and to update our frequently asked questions when we're receiving similar questions or multiple questions or questions we think that other folks might want to have answers to. So keep checking out our website, and happy grant and cooperative agreement writing. I hope you all have a fantastic afternoon.